Taylor Farms is issuing a nationwide recall for products containing jalapenos over concerns of salmonella contamination. Retailers like Walmart, Target, Kroger, and Whole Foods are pulling grocery items, including salsa and guacamole, from shelves in at least 26 states. And restaurants are advised not to serve fresh jalapenos to the public.
The CDC and the FDA are working hard to trace back exactly where these outbreaks are occurring from, intervening with the sort of suppliers to make sure that they don't, and doing recalls to make sure that the disease doesn't, condition doesn't spread.
The company has linked the outbreak to a grower in Sinaloa, Mexico, which supplies products to Coast Citrus distributors. Taylor Farms confirmed it is no longer sourcing products from that farm and is finding alternative suppliers.
I'm concerned about the inability for proper surveillance coming from Mexico.
This isn't the first road bump for Taylor Farms. The company also recalled iceberg lettuce sourced from central Mexico, linked to the recent cyclospora outbreak in more than a dozen states. Many shoppers are now turning to local farmers markets instead of big box retailers over food safety fears.
Produce and plants, it's coming from the earth and the biome that's in your local area, which means that it's going to have the natural bacteria and stuff that are good for your gut, as opposed to something that's been, washed, sanitized, and used a bunch of chemicals on just to get it to you.
I feel more comfortable taking from a local farmer than from a supermarket.
The CDC is also investigating a multi-state salmonella outbreak tied to eggs from a Texas producer. In New York, Tanya J. Powers, Fox News.
The Strait of Hormuz is still largely closed to ship traffic, as President Trump says the U.S. is now low-keying it in negotiations with Iran. That's according to a new interview with Axios, where he also signaled a possible shift in focus from military pressure to an economic squeeze.
They're hurting in a big way. They want this thing to be over. The question is whether their system is able to give the things that are necessary for us to be happy.
Iran, though, has a new list of demands for reopening the Strait of Hormuz, including the U.S. lifting sanctions and its naval blockade, ending attacks on Iranian allies, and paying war reparations.
Iran's demands are completely unreasonable, and they really show that the IRGC is out of options.
Iran also wants partial control over the strait, something they did not have before the war. Democrats are blasting Trump for not making gains in the 5.5-month conflict.
Congress has to take back the steering wheel from this impaired driver before we end up in a third quagmire in the Middle East of the 21st century.
But some military analysts stress Iranians' tolerance for economic pain is higher than Americans, and leaders in Tehran will get even more aggressive as the U.S. midterms get closer.
They will not give up the Straits of Hormuz unless we take it back by force. No amount of economic pressure on them, I think, will bend them to do that.
A new Fox poll shows that 73% of Americans think the U.S. will either get a bad deal or no deal with Iran. In Washington, Caroline Shively, Fox News.
Nobody wants to sit out here in triple-digit temperatures for hours on end.
Residents in western Nevada under evacuation orders Sunday due to a large wildfire burning north of Reno.
A quick gust of wind, and that's when the fire will spark up again. So that's why we are keeping residents out of those communities.
As of Sunday night, the bug fire had burned more than 11,000 acres. It's burning along Nevada's border with California, a state also facing wildfires, including the Ridge Fire in Southern California, which resulted in a temporary freeway closure and major traffic jam. Winds seen here whipping that blaze up into a so-called fire devil. The blaze was eventually brought under control. In Nevada's neighbor to the east, Utah, firefighting efforts turned deadly. A helicopter crashed with 2 people on board who authorities say were battling the Wide-Mouth 2 fire. Both the pilot and the passenger were killed. Meanwhile, some evacuation levels have been downgraded in the massive fires that have burned over the last week in Spokane County, Washington. But the fight against those blazes isn't over, and the devastation is massive.
I've lost everything I own, everything I ever worked for. But I found out people love me.
Across the border in Canada, more flames. One blaze, the Bald Range wildfire in British Columbia, forced roughly 12,000 residents to evacuate.
Conditions are extremely dangerous and changing minute by minute.
I'm Reed Binion reporting.
Democrats may be having their internal debates. Regardless, some high-profile Democrats are endorsing or at least reaching out to Abdul El-Sayed. Former President Barack Obama is now one of the latest to speak with El-Sayed. El-Sayed did not share the details of their conversation. Still, it's the latest attempt to bridge the gaps within the Democratic Party. El-Sayed says he's hoping to campaign with Obama as they try to turn the page in the primary. Some, though, are skeptical El-Sayed can unite different factions of the party. Today, El-Sayed was asked whether he'd continue campaigning with far-left Twitch streamer Hassan Piker, who's been accused of making inflammatory comments and spreading anti-Semitic rhetoric. Here's how El-Sayed responded.
I'm less concerned now with who I'm campaigning with, a lot more concerned about who I'm campaigning to. I think we have this notion sometimes on shows like this that we cannot or should not talk to certain groups of people. And I'll tell you that the 3 million people who listen to Hassan are people I want to make sure understand that there's a pathway into our politics around getting money out of politics.
A centrist Democratic group is spearheading a $15 million effort between now and 2028 to discredit democratic socialism, a sign that the discord among Democrats is unlikely to go away anytime soon. But to progressives like Senator Bernie Sanders, El-Sayed's win has been a long time coming.
In my view, Abdul's victory was one of the most extraordinary victories in modern political history. Now, I think what we are seeing all over this country, from coast to coast, is that working people are sick and tired of being the only major country on earth that does not guarantee health care to all people as a human right.
California Governor Gavin Newsom is in Michigan this weekend rallying for Democrats. Republicans see an opening with GOP gubernatorial nominee John James out with a post saying, "Don't California my Michigan." In Washington, Mala Rivera, Fox News.
Neighbors, friends, and loved ones showed up today to dig through the rubble for anything that was recoverable. Eric Frank tells us the loss of his home is devastating, but the community response has been heartwarming.
I've lost everything I own, everything I ever worked for, but I found out people love me and they care about me. I trade all of this for that.
Eric has been working with his insurance company throughout the week and says they've been wonderful help, but for him, the process has been extremely emotional.
I got to sit down yesterday and sketch every room in my house, which was very emotional, and then go through all my rolls of pictures and send them pictures of the inside of the house. So that emotional roller coaster of knowing this is what's here, but seeing all the love.
His partner, Lori Higgins, told us this week was busy for them both, especially Eric.
It's really hard, you know. He has some really rough moments, and then of course there's a million things to do, you know, list to make and pictures to send to the insurance company and, you know, companies to call to turn things off.
While in the neighborhood, we also saw women leaving colorful messages of hope on the sidewalk. Firefighters and neighbors helped residents clear pine needles and remove the dry fuel left behind as hot and dry conditions continue through this weekend. One man we spoke with said he came to water down his roof and check on his neighbor after seeing his story on the news earlier this week.
I always liked him. He had one of the best properties, the best looking lawns in the neighborhood. And when I saw it, I says, there can't be a second guy with that long blonde hair like Eric.
One woman on Eric Street had a relief station full of snacks and cold drinks set up for first responders and neighbors in the area. Lori and Eric said that love and human connection is the driving force getting them through these impossible times.
This was a you know, bricks and wood and nails and stuff, but you know what matters is the love of other people and the connection you have to them. So.
Eric told us next steps for him are recovering his possessions and said he just wants to be a sign of hope for others.
Talks to end the war with Iran have stalled, and many worry a possible peace deal is nowhere in sight.
This is an issue that's not going to get sorted out anytime soon.
Iran is now accusing the U.S. of breaching the terms of their agreement signed in June, and leaders are pushing for new demands for the U.S. to fulfill before reopening the Strait of Hormuz. It's the vital waterway where prior to the war, roughly 20% of the world's oil traveled.
There's an argument coming from some people in Tehran that the regime just wants to drag this out. They're happy to keep the Strait of Hormuz closed for a while because they think that will add further pressure on the U.S.
Since U.S. and Israeli forces first launched strikes on Iran more than 5 months ago, maritime traffic through the strait has essentially halted due to safety concerns. It's caused oil and gas prices to surge across the world. As of Sunday, the national average for a gallon of regular gas was $4.01. And while that's lower than the wartime peak of $4.56, it's still 86 cents higher than a year ago.
Now, prices are still higher than we would like, but we've taken a lot of steps so that when the Gulf situation is resolved, that we can expect prices to go way, way down.
Even if the Strait of Hormuz does reopen soon, it could take some time before oil production starts up again and prices begin to come down at the pump.
To be tangible evidence of mine-sweeping activities in order to restore confidence that shippers can move through and not necessarily face those risks.
I'm Jen Sullivan reporting.
Mark Zuckerberg is promoting investing in communities near Meta data centers. A $1 billion fund will be set up to help locations where the company's data centers are set up. The Wall Street Journal says Meta is planning to spend up to $145 billion on capital spending this year, mostly for building data centers. Higher oil and gas prices are resulting in more business for China's electric vehicle makers, and that is cutting into international business for U.S. automakers. The Journal says China's EV exports rose 120% in the first half of this year, over a year ago. EV sales have been falling in the U.S. since a Biden-era tax subsidy expired last year. Analysts say demand for beauty products picked up in the first half of the year, with L'Oreal being the big winner in the luxury market. Analysts at Berenberg say the company has been investing in its brands, and that is paying off. And The Odyssey officially passes Avatar's IMAX's highest-grossing film of all time. Christopher Nolan's epic earning $289 million from the format so far, after The Odyssey became the first feature shot entirely on IMAX film. Under all formats, The Odyssey has now grossed more than $1 billion worldwide after 4 weekends. CJ Papa, Fox News.
They're squishy and in shapes kids love, including animals, food, and characters. But the U.S. Consumer Product Safety Commission says these pliable toys can put children in danger.
We are getting reports of a serious burn risk in relation to these toys.
This week, the CPSC put out this consumer warning reiterating the hazards after officials say a viral social media trend is encouraging children and teens to microwave squishy toys. The alert says the videos depict the toys expanding, changing texture, or bursting when heated.
No one should feel encouraged to place these toys into a microwave and heat them on purpose. It is extremely dangerous.
The agency says squishy toys in a hot car can also burst and pose a burn risk. And to date, at U.S. ports, officials say they've identified and helped prevent nearly 356,000 fake and counterfeit versions of the toy from entering the U.S. Those toys may not meet federal safety requirements, and since it's unknown what's inside those toys, they say a child could be exposed to chemicals or face inhalation or ingestion hazards. Some of the toys are filled with water beads, which can expand if swallowed and cause serious health problems.
Do not buy unbranded and unmarked versions of these toys. Know the seller, know the brand. Even if they are branded, make sure that nothing in the branding or marketing is misspelled.
For Health Minute, I'm Andy Gaither. A new school year with new supplies, new teachers, new classmates, and a lot of unknowns. If your student is feeling some anxiety, that's normal.
There's a sweet spot where we can feel some, but not be overwhelmed and consumed by it.
Licensed therapist Jody Baumstein with Children's Healthcare of Atlanta says starting something new can be stressful for any student, whether they're heading to school for the first time or going off to college. But parents can help ease their children into the new year.
One thing that's really helpful is practicing coping skills before the child needs it.
Baumstein says to teach children how to slow their body down, closing their eyes and counting to 10, planting their feet on the floor, and taking deep breaths can all help. She says to also focus on breathing by having a child put a hand on their stomach to feel it go up and down, or for a young child, have them lie on the floor with a stuffed animal on their abdomen, allowing them to watch it rise and fall with each breath.
We want them to have lots of different things in their toolkit, so if they do feel overwhelmed when they're at school, they know what to do because you've already practiced.
Baumstein says perhaps the best way to teach children these skills is to let them see how you deal with anxiety. When you have something stressful come up, talk to them about it.
Explain what you're feeling and what you're going to do with that feeling to prepare, because that's how they learn.
For Health Minute, I'm Andy Gaither.
Okay, your wife is in a bar, you said she's unresponsive?
This is what he's going to tell you.
Trying to find the first place to put a body.
No, sir.
The only thing they could do was kill him.
Be the jury and to find the defendant